Republican senators met with President Donald Trump yesterday in the Oval Office to work out a way forward on the reconciliation package, also known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. Here to discuss this is Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas. Senator Marshall is a member of the Senate Budget Committee and the Finance Committee, which met yesterday with President Trump. Senator Marshall, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Tony, it's great to be with you. And I couldn't help but think, as you were talking to Jim Daly earlier, what a great influence James Dobson was on my life. And I had to sit there and think, what would James Dobson think of this bill? And I think it's important to communicate with you and your listeners that we defund Planned Parenthood in this bill, that we cut funding for the Obamacare insurance policies if they do abortions, that we stop federal funding for any of the transgender surgeries. We increase the child tax credit. We try to make this a pro-family, pro-American value bill. And before we dive into all the economics of this, I just want you to know that there's a moral part of this that's important to you, important to me, important to your listeners.
Absolutely. And these are provisions that you've been working on independently with other legislation. Now we're able to get a lot of this into the reconciliation package. For instance, you said two big issues: total defunding of government or taxpayer funding of abortion entities or providers. That's not going to be in there anymore. So the almost $800 million that Planned Parenthood got from taxpayers, that goes away. And something you've been working on, very passionate about, is the issue of these transgender procedures on minors and others that the taxpayers have been paying for. That's gone under this bill.
Yeah, Tony, very proud of the work. And this is all because of President Trump's leadership, his commitment to making America great again, making America healthy again. I'm especially grateful for this opportunity to stop the funding of mutilation of our children. I just can't. I mean, this is child abuse, and I am just so honored that we can be part of stopping the federal funding.
And I should mention, I didn't mention this in the introduction, but you are a medical doctor, delivered some 5,000 babies before getting elected to Congress and then serving in the Senate, so you know a little bit about health care. I want to talk about health care in just a moment, because a lot of concerns that have been raised, false concerns, I think, having worked with the House on this bill. But I first want I want to get a characterization of you of the meeting yesterday that took place in the Oval Office. A lot of people wondering. In fact, I was talking to some reporters saying, I wish I had been a fly on the wall of that meeting. So you weren't a fly, but you were in there. Tell us about the meeting.
Yeah, I just wish people could get to know the President Trump that I know, that just every time I see him, he's upbeat, he's positive, and he'll use the term that, look, America's hot right now. America is hot, our economy's growing. He's so proud. We're having a GDP growth maybe of 4.6% this quarter. The old thugs sat there and thought it was going to be 0.5%, but it's probably 4.6%. There's lots of tariff money coming in right now, way ahead of schedule. So many good things happening. $15 trillion in promised investment. So as we look at this one big beautiful bill, President Trump is trying to share with us what he thinks it'll do economically, that it's going to grow the economy 3 or 4%. Now, your Congressional Budget Office, and it's so boring to even talk about him, but just think of him as your boring accountants are saying that we'll only have 1.8% growth. President Trump thinks we're going to have 3 or 4% growth. And at the end of the day, this bill is going to impact to the good $8 trillion towards our national debt. That this bill is going to lower our national debt some $8 trillion over 10 years.
So let's talk about two issues that are drawing attention, one of them mostly in the House before it left, and it's going to pop back up in the Senate, and that is the taking Medicaid and making sure that those who are in need have access to it, so that those who are able-bodied and could work have to work if they're going to stay on it.
Yeah. Tony, our Christian duty is to take care of those who are the least amongst us. And I will guarantee you that I will do everything I can to protect Medicaid for those who need it the most. That would be our senior citizens in nursing homes. It would be people with disabilities. It would be children, especially. But we now have over 90 million people on Medicaid. We're spending $1 trillion a year on Medicaid. It's grown 50% in the last 5 years. Meanwhile, we have 7 million healthy American men working age that aren't working right now. Let's do them a favor. Let's help them get a job. The best safety net out there is a job. It's good for your mental health. It brings purpose to your life. So many great things, and every job is important to me. I don't care whether you're the hedge manager or you're trimming the hedge. All those jobs are important. They bring meaning to life. So we want to do our godly duty and give people a hand up, not a handout.
And some of those that are being taken off of the Medicaid under this bill are those who are here in the country illegally.
Yeah, so if whatever report you hear from the headlines, maybe let's just say throw a number out of 10 million people could lose Medicaid. 1.5 million of those are people that are here illegally. Another half are people that should never have been on Medicaid in the first place. They're on it fraudulently. And then the other half are working men for the most part, not people or women that don't have dependents, working age men or working age women that we want to help encourage to get back to work. And again, there's so many opportunities out there right now. There are plenty of jobs. If you can go through a 2-year technical program or a community college program in my home state, you're going to walk away with an $80,000 a year job and no debt. And they're great jobs. They're fun jobs. They help provide energy to America. It helps all the great technical skills out there that we need in manufacturing, in the aerospace industry. So I'm just so upbeat, Tony. You can't tell. I'm just, for the first time in years, I'm excited about America, and I'm excited about the opportunities here.
It is. We're at a turning point. Things are turning around. I want to talk about some of the other criticisms, Senator Marshall, that kind of surprised people. Elon Musk, who was heading Doge, was a part of this in the White House all the time, working on it. Now, all of a sudden, he's soured on the bill. The president pointing to something in his comments yesterday when he was asked about the post that Elon had put up, that it comes down to the actual cuts that are in the reconciliation bill dealing with electric vehicles.
Yeah. Well, certainly, a big difference between being a CEO. Elon's a CEO, but here the president has a board of 435 members on the House side, and here in the Senate, there's another 100 members that are on the board, and not everyone thinks like Elon. That's a big difference between me running a hospital or being a church board chairman versus being your senator, is that I have to work with other people, and I would love to cut more money from what the House did, and that's my goal. The House cut $1.6 trillion over 10 years. I've said all along I wanted to get north of $2 trillion of cuts so we could pay for some of the president's programs that he wants so badly. So I still think we've got more work to do. I still believe that the number one long-term challenge this country faces is our national debt. To face that problem, the first thing we do is grow the economy. And that's what this bill is going to do by making the Trump tax cuts permanent. We need to continue to roll back regulations. We will see the Trump growth in this economy. The next thing we need to do is freeze spending. Would love to cut it. I'm going to try to cut it. But if you cut things too fast, this big ship we call America will flip over. We've been on a sugar high here for 5 years, spending $2 trillion more than we're taking in. And then eventually we'll need to cut spending, but we'll need to do that through the appropriations process as well. Grow the economy, stabilize the spending, and then cut spending.
So let's talk about the way forward here in the Senate. We just have 2 minutes left, Senator Marshall. But there are a number of your colleagues that want to see more reductions in this. Do you think, and this is kind of odd because usually the Senate is not more conservative than the House, but do you think the Senate will serve up a more conservative reconciliation package?
Oh, I absolutely do. And I've already seen some of the reports coming out of the committees that's going to have more spending cuts than the House does. I don't know if we're going to get to my $2 trillion magic number, but I expect us to be there. And I think, again, we're just trying to be frugal. Tony, one of the greatest joys of my life was being our board chairman, our church board chairman for 4 years. And I'm telling you, I took better care of other people's money than my own because you feel that obligation. And that's the way I feel up here, whether it's the Medicare Trust Fund or Medicaid dollars or whatever. I feel very responsible for the money that hardworking Americans have given us, and I think there's an opportunity to make some more trimming here.
Well, I wish more had that perspective of the money, because I think some people treat it less responsibly than their own funding, and it's a real honor, but also obligation to be in that role of stewarding what the people have entrusted to the government of this country. Senator Roger Marshall, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today on Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much. Let's make America great again.
Amen.